Hello and welcome to Foul Plays, where we look at tales of tabletop tragedy that are sure to ruffle some feathers. I'm your host, Boss Goose, and today we have two tales for you featuring furry DMs. The first of which tries to replace all of OP's character ideas with their own, and when that doesn't work, attempts to have OP's character have a sexual encounter with a wild animal, claiming that their instincts were too strong to deny. And in our second story, the DM advertises their game as a typical adventuring party rising up to face the evils of the world, only for the players to find out that the inhabitants of this world were all naked humanoid animals with risque character art. And after asking the DM to include more typical fantasy content, the server was quickly deleted. Before we get to that though, let's play a quick round of Where's the Bear? The rules to which are simple. We have 3 trees here, and hiding in one of them is a hungry bear collecting some honey. And it's up to you to guess which tree the bear is hiding in. So go ahead and choose left, middle, or right, and I'll reveal the answer in 3, 2, 1. And if you chose the left tree, congratulations! You found our ursine friend and get to partake in some of that tasty golden bounty. And if you chose one of the other trees, then unfortunately there is no honey for you. But what you can do is hit that subscribe button and you'll receive updates on whenever new videos are available on my channel, as well as gain easy access to hours of already existing content that will keep you entertained. Now, without any further delays, take your seats and wet your beaks as we dive on into today's tales. Hello everyone, this is my first time posting here. Hopefully this will prove to be a cautionary and informative tale. This was a 5e game a few years back. I had been the group's DM, but had recently lost my job and had been living out of my car for a while, so another player decided to take up the reins while I got my life back together. Out of respect for everyone's privacy, I'll just assign all involved monikers. The other players can go by Charm, Clueless, Confrontation, and Edge. Edge was the player who decided to take over for me. He came up with this wonderful idea of a Sky Island adventure. We were all on board, and he even said he would give us all an extra boon. Our tiefling bard, played by Charm, received free wings. Our half-orc paladin, played by Confrontation, received the ability to summon flying mounts at level 1. Edge and Confrontation were besties. Clueless gained flight for his dragonborn paladin, and my half-elf cleric of Saloon could turn into a werebear. At first, I was like, okay, Saloon is a goddess of the moon, so it's not the craziest idea for a cleric of hers to be a werebear. But it didn't stop there. My half-elf cleric was male, but a Bishonen, who had an upbeat and supportive personality. At least that's how I envisioned him. He grew up in an orphanage, and the caretaker was essentially my surrogate mother. Almost immediately, Edge began pushing the Blood Hunter class on me, telling me how my father had abandoned me after my mother was brutally killed by vampires, and how it filled me with fanatical hatred of vampires and how bitter and vengeful my character was. Also, he wanted to make my character as hyper-masculine as possible, which, once again, went against the Bishonen persona I was going for with this character. Now, I had no issue with the dead mother and the deadbeat dad, but I was not going to transform my character into a vengeance-filled edgelord. I wanted my cleric to live life one day at a time and not become obsessed with a blood feud with vampires. Edge was a big fan of the Underworld movies and lycanthropes in general, along with being a furry himself. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with this in and of itself, but the problems began when he began pushing a few things that he personally enjoyed on my character. But more on that later. For the record, I have nothing against Bloodhunter as a class, it just didn't fit my character. Fast forward a few sessions, and we're finally off the main island and traveling around, with the DM still trying to force the Underworld storyline upon me after I told him that it didn't fit with my character. I would fight vampires, but I wasn't going to be a vengeance-filled edgelord about it. This led to my first werebear transformation, which occurred during the middle of a battle. As I began to transform, Edge informed me that a furious, bloodthirsty rage overtook me as I was filled with hatred and fury over the dead mother who I had never met nor had any memory of. My epic one-liner, in a deep voice, "Today's the day the teddy bears have their picnic." Now, to be fair, that song is low-key terrifying when you look at the implications of the lyrics, but at that point, it was enough to completely take the wind out of Edge's sails. After the battle, I tried to turn back, but he informed me that my werebear form is now my default form, and that I couldn't turn back into a half-elf. My response to this, while somewhat juvenile, was to make the most groan-worthy bear puns whenever possible. It was unbearable. Yes, this is the right response. When I wasn't in hybrid form, he would have me randomly get trapped in full bear form. During one session when Charm wasn't around and it was just me and Edge, Confrontation, and Clueless, Edge decided that what my character needed was some romance. And this is where he tried to force a specific fetish of his on me and my character. What this actually entailed was him telling me that while I was in bear form, I was sexually attracted to a female bear and wanted to reproduce with her. Naturally, I put my foot down and said no. He insisted, saying that my animal instincts had taken over and it was only natural that my character would want to have sex with a she-bear in heat. And I still put my foot down, saying I would not have sex with the bear. This, on top of my puns and refusal to be an extra from the Underworld franchise, genuinely ticked him off, and I'm pretty sure Edge decided that my character had to go. Eventually, we got to our next island, after I was finally able to get back to my half-elf form, an island that a group of evil fae were trying to get to fall out of the sky. So naturally, not a single creature we fought actually had the fae typing, or any typing that could be affected by my protection from good or evil, and they always seemed to target me. There was the Island Guardian, which was a Fey Celestial Undead combo that counted as none of those things. There were the Monstrosity Satyrs, the Fey Spiders, and of course, the Catoblepes. Definitely butchered that, but moving on. One of which tried to kill Charm's tiefling after he had flown onto his back, moving his neck at a 180-degree angle backwards that should have broken the Catoblepes neck. Charm had also rebelled against Edge and his attempts to make his backstory and character as edgy as possible. Eventually, things came to a head during our battle with a giant Stonehenge golem, a CR way outside our level range, with the only way to defeat him being a puzzle we had received no clue or forewarning about, or even had a chance to activate it before the thing attacked. So, even while Clueless and Confrontation, the paladins, were whacking at it, and Charm was doing his best to figure out what was ultimately a relatively simple elemental puzzle, my poor half-elf life cleric was drawing aggro on this death machine, going full defense with Shield of Faith up just to survive, as it continued to ignore the paladins that were actually trying to stop it. When I wasn't fighting for my life, I was launching guiding bolts, which naturally did nothing. Eventually, Clueless and Confrontation decided to help Charm finish off the puzzle, and I was saved, much to the annoyance of the DM. The campaign fell apart not too long after, as Edge didn't want to do it anymore, and despite my better judgment, I decided to run a Starfinder game, as my life was beginning to pull itself back together. Eventually, Edge and Confrontation had a vicious and very ugly falling out, and the group was disbanded. Confrontation and I were never that close, and Edge just disappeared entirely. I also have no idea what happened to Clueless. Charm and I went on to form a new group. While small, it isn't nearly as dysfunctional. As a rule for my new players, I make sure I know what they're comfortable with and promise them that I won't force anything on their characters that they don't want. Remember, friends, it's all about communication and respect. What a grisly tale. Here we have an example of someone trying to project what they want onto another person's character. The DM had some pretty clear ideas on what they wanted OP to play, but it was in complete opposition of what OP had actually wanted for their character, and it seems like the rejection of these ideas was not taken well by DM. While constructive input can be helpful in the character creation process, it's unreasonable to try to radically change everything the player wants, from backstory to looks to even their class. At that point, you might as well just say up front that the campaign's going to be using pre-made characters and provide them to the players. Moving on though, things got pretty clawful when the DM wouldn't allow OP to return to their original form and tried to initiate a forced sexual encounter with a bear. Whether you're kidding around or being serious, when OP said no, that should have really been the end of it. I've said it before, but whatever your preferences may be, they don't give you license to impose them onto other people. And I don't know how OP continued to bear it when the rejection was not taken well by the DM, who clearly began to target them after this. If you get a problem with another person at the table, this is not the way to resolve it. Talk it out, See if there's something that can be resolved, and if not, it's probably time to go your separate ways. Like OP said at the end of their story, communication and respect are key to avoiding these kinds of embarrassing situations. That's the last one, I promise. Story 2. This is a short and relatively tame game that recently ended in failure. I found a Roll20 game that advertised itself as a world starting to go bleak and young adventurers rising up to become the flames of hope for a new world. Sounds cool. I've been playing darker and grittier games, so maybe a refresh of a more Good Guys Lord of the Rings campaign would do more nicely. I fill in my application and get in with 4 other players. Session 0 comes. We do introduction around Discord and the DM goes last, and the DM immediately in her introduction announces that she's a furry. It was a bit awkward because she was announcing it as if she was coming out of the closet or something, and the players were all silent for about 10 seconds. I'm not sure if she was expecting one of us to congratulate her, clap, or announce some of us were furries as well, but it seemed like she had left a pause for some dramatic effect or response, and it was just silence. She moves on to speak about the other usual things in the Session 0, and one of the players pipes up around the end. Yeah, we all have our things. Let's be accepting. I'm not sure if the DM took this as a sign to throw her fetish into the game, but come Session 1, and it was abundantly clear that the world we were thrown in is essentially Zootopia. Every NPC we come across is some form of humanoid animal, with blushing long eyelashes, beautified art, and wearing no clothes. I'm not sure how to explain it, except to say if you've seen furry art, you know exactly what it looks like. Me playing the bard gets hit on by a tiger NPC lady at the tavern, who purrs at my character and calls him handsome for having 18 charisma. To which I just say my character smiles and thanks her, but he needs to be on his way to investigate those strange cultists outside town. Game ends 3 hours in, and the DM asks for feedback. And having played through things I did not play before, I asked the DM directly if she intended for this to be a furry game. She laughs and responds, yes. I tell her that's really cool, but personally, it's not really my fetish, and if I had missed somewhere on the advertisement that this was intended to be such. The other players, trying to be nice, do some nervous laughter and say, yeah, I kinda got the furry feeling too. We talk for a bit and tell DM that while some animal humanoids are okay, we want a more standard D&D world, and if we could have less risque art. The DM says, okay, and as soon as we exit voice chat, she kills the server. One of the players that had friended me asks if he had been kicked, and I tell him, nope, DM probably nuked the server. Roll20 and the internet is a big place. Please people, if you want to play a world with certain aesthetics that go to your fetish, just be open about it. I assure you, there are others with your tastes, and you can find players that will be suited to your game. Here's another example of a DM trying to push their preferences onto the party, but this story isn't nearly as bad as our first one was. It seems like she had no malicious intent in doing this. However, if this is the kind of game you're looking to run, it's probably best to be upfront about it when recruiting. It may take you a little longer, but you're much more likely to be successful in running the type of game that you want, rather than hiding it and ending up with a group of people who just aren't interested. And when choosing character art, there's nothing wrong with making them attractive, but try to keep things out of the not safe for work realm, as not everyone's going to be comfortable with that. I'm glad that it sounds like they had a mature conversation about everything at the end. Even though the server did end up getting nuked, this was the right way for OP and company to handle the situation, rather than just sitting through a campaign that they weren't interested in and letting things grow into a much bigger problem. Anyways, thanks for checking out my video and sticking around till the end. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I upload new content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday, so make sure you check out my channel for more D&D stories. And if you like this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave me a goosebump in the comments below. The support is greatly appreciated. But until next time, be good players.